200,000 Cubans have left the island in the last year. Let's talk about it. Official reports say that over 177,000 Cubans have left the island in the last year. Of course, there's no real way of knowing exactly how many since they're doing it illegally. The vast majority are coming to the United States, in particular the state of Florida and the state of Texas. This is the largest influx of Cubans into the United States since the 1990s, which means that the situation in Cuba must be unbearable. On his last day in office, Obama removed the law that allowed Cubans to come to the United States legally and obtain documents, which means that all these Cubans are not only not able to obtain legal status, but there's no clear defined situation of what's going to happen to them. Cuba will certainly not take back that many deportees, and the United States has no plans to give them legal status, which means that these people that are coming here are finding themselves in a situation where they cannot work legally, and there's no clear legal situation or outcome for them. This is a huge problem because Cubans used to come to the United States and obtain a legal status, assuming that they're going to get their documents and that they're coming here to have jobs and normal lives, not knowing that there's no clear legal process for them. Many of the Cubans that are coming here are finding frustration in the inability to find legal avenues for work. And as we know from the years 2007 and 2008, many of the Cubans who came to the United States and were stuck in this period where you're not legal resorted to working for criminal organizations, according to news reports from that era. In Southwest Florida, close to 100 grow operations were being found every year. More than 90% were usually Cubans that were recent arrivals. And those were Cubans that were coming directly from Cuba to the United States. Now Cubans are making a trajectory through Central America, where Cubans are looked at as cash cows. With family members in the United States that are already established, they have found no shortage of being able to find Cubans and demand any sum of money they want for their liberations. The country of Guatemala, in particular, has been a difficult crossing place for Cubans. The trajectory for some has taken them to places like Nicaragua, Colombia, Venezuela, pretty much anywhere they can escape from Cuba. They're going into South America first. News articles are flooding the internet of people coming in airplanes that they have stolen, others in boats. Many people from the Florida Keys have posted videos of rafts pulling up on shore, makeshift boats, and dozens of people jumping off. It is complete mayhem, the sheer number of people that are leaving Cuba. New groups of Cubans who had never left the island are starting to arrive in Florida, in particular Afro-Cubans, as well as many musical artists. Among those musical artists, a new scene of subgenres of reggaeton and hip-hop are developing in Miami, as many of the arrivals are artists from Cuba who are developing a new musical scene in Miami. In particular, artist Ovi has a song called Callejon, which details his trip from Cuba through Central America and his arrival in the United States to become a famous artist. That video link will be in the video description. He details the struggles of crossing several countries, leaving behind his mother, and being in difficult situations in Central America in the jungles. Also, a short news clip as his family was able to get an update through the news as he was randomly on a news channel showing his journey, explaining how he was treated well when he arrived in the country of Mexico on his way to the United States. While the artist Ovi details a journey of fear and scary situations and challenges, I was going to include another song of an artist that was celebrating the ability of Cubans to go to the country of Nicaragua. And this song was more of a celebratory song explaining how lucky the Cubans who make it to Nicaragua are. on their way to the United States. However, this song is no longer on YouTube. Interesting. It is not the first time that a song encouraging Cubans to come to the United States has been eliminated from the internet. There was a song many years ago about "I'll leave for Miami and I'll file the paperwork for you," referring to the fact that once a Cuban arrived in the United States, he could request that his family members left behind in Cuba could come join him as a family reunification, which was supposed to be for humanitarian purposes, but the song clearly just celebrated how people were exploiting this process. And it's not a surprise that the song also mysteriously disappeared. It seems like there's a suppression among the Cuban community to talk about how easy it is for Cubans to obtain legal status or to arrive in the United States. Many times, this suppression of music and its content comes from Hispanic news reporters and other influencers who, at the end of the day, never seem to do much else for those artists once their songs that were charting among the small Cuban community of less than 1 million people at that time disappear. Now there's certainly more than 1 million Cubans in the United States. Keep in mind that Florida has also had about 1 million Puerto Ricans come. Most of these are, of course, U.S. citizens who are leaving Puerto Rico due to the hurricanes there. That means that Florida is continuing to have a growing Hispanic population. Of course, the Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens by birth, and a lot of them already speak English, and they're much more economically fluent. They're able to get jobs, they're able to assimilate better to the American culture. But these Cubans that are coming now are not going to obtain any type of legal status. At least there's no plans in the works at the moment. They're not aware that there's no legal avenue for them to be able to obtain their documents so that they can work legally and reside in the United States. There's no information given to these people. A lot of them arrive here not even knowing that there's no avenue for that. The way people have grown up to think in Cuba is to not care about laws, not care about regulations, not have any responsibilities, not to inquire about anything. And they're coming over here not realizing that there's no real way for them to become part of the economical system in this country or to have the documents they need to survive here. And it's frustrating that even if you try to explain to them, for some reason, whatever ways they learned in Cuba are some of the most stubborn people you're ever going to run into. And if you try to tell them, hey, you're not going to have legal avenues once you arrive to the United States, they tend to just simply not listen and blow you off. Very stubborn, and this is just the way people in Cuba are taught to be, surprisingly. In the past, Cubans used to help Cubans, but Cubans are frankly tired of helping Cubans, especially the ones that are coming now, who simply do not listen. You tell them if they come over here, they're not going to get any documents, they're not going to be able to get work, and they don't listen. They just feel like they know everything, and I don't know why. I mean, what about Cuba makes people be that way? But the Cubans in the United States are just not helping the ones that are coming. They're completely disconnected from them. Cubans that were here before came legally. Cubans that were here before tried to assimilate to American culture, and Cubans that were here before took advantage of the opportunities that were granted to them in the past. All these Cubans that are coming now could have came when it was easy to come and you could legally obtain your documents, but the economical situation and the hunger in that country just wasn't that bad. So they were happy to be in Cuba partying, enjoying life on the Caribbean island. Now that party is over, and a lot of the Cubans in the United States don't really feel any connection to these Cubans that are coming now because they had opportunities to come here legally. They had the opportunity that no other country in the world was granted, where you could just arrive here and come legally to the United States very simply without any legal hesitation. But they didn't take advantage of the situation. They refused to come to the United States when things were simple. Now the country is upside down, and now they're coming over here by large numbers. So understandably, a lot of Cubans that are here in the United States right now could care less about these Cubans that are coming now because they had all the opportunities in the world to come when things were easy. When there was the ability to come easily and legally to the United States, A lot of Cubans offered their family help to come over here, and they refused it because things weren't that bad. But now that things got horrible, they want to come over here and they're risking their lives to cross all these other countries that are dangerous. Understandably, there's a huge disconnect between the Cubans that are here and established and the Cubans that are coming now, who at the end of the day aren't making too much efforts to assimilate to American society. So you have to understand, on one side, yeah, things are bad over there and people are starting to leave because it's horrible. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details of it. I know a lot about what's going on over there. It's bad. Of course, this isn't the type of stuff you hear on the news because it's not convenient for them to show that. But there's a horrible situation going on in Cuba. You don't see it on the news. It deserves to be on the news. But of course, it's not convenient for anybody really. So you don't see it. I get it. There's a bad situation. But how many opportunities do these people have when things were better to leave Cuba and obtain U.S. status, and they didn't take advantage of it because they were having a good time down there? So it's kind of hard for people to kind of feel any type of sympathy for people who had opportunities. I've even met people who were in the United States and they went back to Cuba because they didn't want to work in the you have to work in the United States. These Cubans are actually left the United States, went back to Cuba because they didn't want to work, and now they're coming back over here because crap got hard over there. So it's really a lot of irresponsibility and a lot of people who just haven't put too much thought into their future or haven't really made long-term plans for their lives. In the United States, you have to plan out your life. You have to take hold of your finances. You have to study and learn and figure out what you're going to do. But part of the gimmick of living in Cuba and the system over there is that they've taken away people's ability to think for themselves and plan for themselves, so they really don't understand how to have a structure of life. Life in the United States in the year 2022 is very complicated and difficult, even for people who speak the language, know the culture, have the documents, and have the experience of how things work over here. So imagine coming to the United States right now with none of that knowledge, just a basic idea of it's going to be better and I'm going to have a car, and they don't really think beyond any of that. Once they arrive here and they see the responsibilities that it takes to live in the United States, a lot of them regret it because they've never worked a day in their lives. So you have a situation now where people are coming here and they don't really have any clear direction. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand what they're getting into when they see rent costs, what jobs pay, not only what jobs pay when you don't have any papers. It's a different situation. Another artist who I'm not going to link in the videos because his content isn't really worth sharing. This guy, his name is Chocolate MC. He's had so many legal hurdles. Another Cuban artist that came recently, Osmani Garcia, also a huge amount of legal hurdles because they think it's okay to break the law continually. And they're here kind of like they're not legal. They're just kind of waiting to see if they're going to be legal. I can tell you that with a bunch of criminal convictions, you're not going to make it through the application process. Therefore, even though they're not going to be able to be U.S. citizens, they're making music criticizing the system in Cuba, which they're most likely going to get sent back to at some point. It's just incredible how uneducated, uninformed these people are. And nobody wants to tell them the truth. And if you tell them the truth, they don't listen. There's no real clear solution to this problem. And it's being ignored by a lot of people because it's a very inconvenient problem. What is being done is that people are uploading videos of 30, 40 people showing up in Florida and airplanes landing in Florida and all types of bizarre methods that people are using to get over here. And it's all happening on social media. There's really no incentive for anybody to want to even touch this can of worms, you could call it. And that's the situation. Cubans are coming at an alarming rate, and there's no real legal avenue for them to establish themselves in the United States. Now, the deal with the United States is there's always been a group of newcomers who enter that status of not legal, not illegal, just kind of in the air. This group used to be Mexicans. They were all forced to leave. Then it became Guatemalans. Pressure's been put on them, and now it's really nothing new. It's been happening in the United States for centuries. That's how most communities in the United States were established. There's always been a new coming group that doesn't get the status, doesn't get anything, and it's their kids, if they're able to stick around long enough, who will be U.S. citizens. What a mess, and the landscape in Florida will be changing. There have been reports coming out of the Miami area of the activities of some of these new neighbors that we have here in Florida. Real estate prices in Miami have been going through the roof, but in the area where these Cubans are settling, real estate prices have actually dropped as people are trying to get the crap out of these areas. I was just sitting at a restaurant not too long ago, over listening a conversation of people that were Cuban from Miami, talking about how scary it has got to live in Miami because they're stealing cars, they're stealing trucks, they're stealing boats. They're just on a whole different level of crime. I'm not going to really elaborate too much on the activities of this new community that's coming to Florida, but the residents of Miami are terrified at the alarming situation with these people. They have no boundaries. They don't care about, I mean, they were getting 24, they were getting sent, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were being pushed to the limit in Cuba for a piece of bread. So they come to the United States and they see Ferraris and stuff. It's a very unrealistic picture that's been painted to them about life in the United States. Most of their information is coming from YouTubers, influencers, and rap music videos. So they're not getting a real accurate picture of what life is like in the United States. For the most part, Cubans that are established have really high college graduation rates, higher than any other group of people in the United States, even higher than Asians. High incomes for the ones that are established, buying real estate, very established. There's huge industries in Florida that are owned by Cuban Americans. So when these Cuban Americans that are established see what these Cubans are doing now, it's like there's no real desire to advocate for these people. So that's the situation in Florida. They are coming. Usually what this does to Florida in the past is that real estate prices for affordable areas are going to increase dramatically because they're all looking for the most affordable real estate. And judging by these news reports that I'm seeing, it seems like the Cuban community that's coming now is doing better in Texas. Seems like the community of Mexican Americans in Texas is taking them in better than the Cubans here, because it seems like the Cubans here aren't really taking them in. If a Cuban stays in Texas, that means they have nobody in Florida willing to take them in. You can rent an apartment in San Antonio that's livable for like $700 a month. In South Florida, the same apartment would cost you $1,800, $1,900 if you can even find it. What are your thoughts and opinions on this topic? And I'm going to leave in the link the video from the artist Ovi. I wanted to leave the other artists, but their video disappeared off the internet. Not surprisingly, with the situation going on right now, a video encouraging people to come over here as if it were a celebratory thing isn't really timely, you could say. So I can kind of understand why the other video disappeared. But if you check the video description, you can find that video. It is in Spanish, but it details this guy's struggle to come here through all these dangerous places, become a famous artist, and then he goes back to Cuba to visit his mom, who did not know he was going to come to visit her. So it's a very emotional video. This artist's come up was so fast and so big that it took the music world by surprise. It was mostly aided by Mexican music labels, and when Obi came to Florida, he started to work with Cuban artists. And then the Mexican artists and record labels, I don't know about the record label, but the artists became really mad at him because the Mexicans were the ones that helped him blow up, and now he's kind of trying to switch up to Cuban. So huge mess. That's kind of similar in general to what's happening to these new Cubans, who are kind of more distant from their Cubans in Florida and kind of more close to the Mexican associates and the Mexican communities they're assimilating into in Texas. Also, these Cubans, they went through a really hard time in Guatemala, so a lot of the Cubans that come now have a huge dislike for Guatemalans. And in South Florida, there's already a lot of Guatemalans, so it seems like Cubans kind of divided. And there's more to it, but we're not going to touch that on this video. That is the situation. I just want to let you guys know this is happening because you've seen the news reports about Cubans coming left and right. I wish I could tell you guys more about what's going on in Cuba, but then we enter a gray area, and we want to make sure that our video stays on the internet. I can just say that I had family members come to the United States who I never thought were going to come over here, and they've explained to us what they were going through, and it's not pretty. and they're doing very well because they're hardworking people. But a lot of the Cubans that are coming over here just don't have the same mentality, and well, they don't have the opportunity really to start working if you can't get your papers. So we'll see how this situation unfolds. But keep in mind, when we came in the 90s, we actually came through a legal process. My father was in prison for over 5 years in Cuba, so we kind of earned our way out of Cuba. And then there's a lot of resentment too from Cubans that came legally and who kind of earned their stripes to come over here versus the ones that came over here because they liked what they saw in a rap music video. And that's just my personal opinion, but I know that a lot of the Cubans who were here before, they definitely were taken in by Americans differently too, because it was a time where the United States' attitude towards Cubans was to give them legal status and help them to become Americans, and that's what they did. But the attitude in the United States has definitely changed. A lot of Cubans have been going to Spain and Europe as well. Nicaragua is another country that's taken in a lot of Cubans in Colombia and Mexico as well. We consider Mexico to be a poor country here in the United States, but Cubans are actually, a lot of them are staying in Mexico because I think in Mexico they're given more of a status quo of some sort. And Mexico is not a poor country by any means. Mexico is actually like 40 to 60% of the net worth and kind of general money flow that we have in the United States is what the average Mexican has over there right now. Ever since a lot of those Mexicans went back, they kind of built their country better. A lot of money went back to Mexico, and Mexico's really improved a lot. I mean, when you compare Cuba to Mexico, it's definitely an upgrade to end up in Mexico. Becoming a U.S. citizen, even when all your papers are in order, it's so easy to make one small mistake and lose it. And when I went to apply to become a U.S. citizen, it was just one of the most terrifying processes I've ever been through my whole life. Everybody wants to be in the United States, but that includes Canadians, Germans, and people who have great countries. So, of course, people from Cuba and Haiti are going to want to come over here. I'm going to throw 2 more videos in the link description. One video is from an artist from Immokalee, Florida. The song is called Fresh Off the Boat, and it details the struggle of Haitians who are also coming to Florida, a small rural community called Immokalee, right outside of Naples, where I grew up. That's where this artist, who's Haitian, his song's called Fresh Off the Boat. I'll put that in there. And I'm also going to put another song from Chocolate MC. It's an artist who I said I wasn't going to do it for him, but I'm going to do it for him because he's got one song called Unite, which is really short for United States, which kind of glamorizes that process of coming to the United States. So in the video description, you'll have 3 interesting cultural references to what's going on in Florida. And I would prefer not to share music from these types of artists because the most part their content's garbage, but there's so little cultural references to what's going on. Go to the video description, you'll see those 3 artists, and it'll give you an idea of kind of the cultural reference to what's going on in Florida. There's a lot of other songs that I could throw at you because Cuban artists have started to get very political, but I'm not going to share those with you. So I'll give you those 3 cultural references so you can kind of obtain some type of idea of what's going on in Florida with these new groups that are coming here and how they view the situation.